And welcome to Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast with your host, Buddy Sotelo Esquire, and wrestling's premier photographer, Mike Leno, Dr. Mike Leno. And tonight we have from the Buster Unmasked podcast, Buster H.R. Johnson. So welcome, and thank you for being on the show for the first time. But Mike is bursting out of the seams to tell us all about the MLW show that he was just at. Where was the show at, Mike?
It was in Long Beach at like a TV rock concert. I think that's what the Thunder Studios is. It's used primarily for because it is quite a bit south of Hollywood proper. Maybe an hour, 15-minute drive. Same, given the traffic on the 405 freeway from Santa Monica, and Culver City, where there's lots of less expensive facilities. By that I mean just property rental to film.
Well, it's
TV
on the 405. I'm amazed you're back from it. That you were able to make it back to.
Yeah, well, I lived 40 years in my beloved Bay Area, 49er, Raider, A's, Giants, country, Warriors. And then, a little before the pandemic hit, we came down here to take care of, my wife wanted to be close to her parents and be down here. And when I was growing up in the late 50s on 405 freeway, no problem. But now that we're here, a couple of days after we moved here, I went into downtown LA to cover a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla Spectacular, which was PWG was awesome, but MLW was off the charts last night as usual. And, the 405 is always a parking lot. So I've known Court Bauer maybe at least a little more than 3 decades. He started, brilliant booker. He had quite a run with WWE and creative, but he is par excellence as just a great booker for pro wrestling and allowing his talent time to have the absolute best matches they can have. And the talent roster is like the very best international talent, particularly Japan and Mexico. With a dream match I've always wanted to photograph, that being Mystico, who's back to being CMLL, the world's oldest promotion's top lead champion, after getting the belt back from MJF. And Mystico makes, regular appearances in AEW for Tony, but he is lead babyface for MLW. So and every match was like atop this. It was, all the matches were incredible, but each, match seemed to be better than the last. And lots of surprises, as Court is known for.
How many matches were on the card?
Oh, I don't even know, because there was like you can watch, these are pay-per-view quality, and you can watch it if you're not in the area, and the shows always sell out. You can watch for free on YouTube, on MLW's YouTube channel, and probably their own website. But Court founded, I think MLW, it was founded in maybe 2002 or thereabouts, because I was able to get it and started publicizing. If you have DirecTV or Dish, you could get the Florida Sunshine cable network. So, I was seeing Sanjay Dutt well before he ever started in TNA, and many other incredible talents. Court had Gary Hart and Dusty Rhodes and Terry Funk and Joey Styles sort of helping him at different periods. All you have to do is watch their sizzle reel that they show before each show, whether TV or, the house shows. And it's just a wealth of literally everybody. But I'll go over the results very quickly. But it opened with, sort of a nod to the 1992 WCW, where Abdullah the Butcher Abbey popped into the electric chair, so maybe for a Halloween theme. But their MLW World Championship Chamber of Horrors match, Mads Cruel Kruger defeated the following: Matthew Justice, Brock Anderson, that's Arn's son, who looks exactly like him, C.W. Anderson from ECW fame, Mr. Thomas and Chris Adonis. And C.W. Anderson saved his nephew, or his work nephew, got Brock out of the electric chair only to be shoved in there by Kruger, and then he got electrocuted. Shotzi Blackheart debuted her new Graveyard Shift talk show, and she is over like nobody's business. Everybody loves her. She broke in, as Russ and I know, in the Bay Area. I saw her often on Icebox's shows and uh, uh, Sparky Ballard's Gold Rush Pro Wrestling, and you know where she literally wrestled everywhere. I
Yes,
need
but
to
I never managed her. That's one of
Yeah,
my
never managed her. I got to
or
get her
against
my
her.
photos of her against Candice LeRae and Thunder Rosa and La Rosa Negra. But she had Bishop Dyer and Donovan Dijak. They are the new Skyscrapers tag team. And, you know, Bishop Dyer is formerly known as Baron Corbin in WWE. And, you know, he was a main event top tier talent, Donovan Dijak. I mean, I was talking with those guys at length, particularly, and they're good friends too because they worked with
Get
each
them on the
other at
show.
NXT.
Get them on the show.
I want to get, well, both of them, but Donovan Dijak needs just a little push because it was devastating the way once he got
We'll
up to the
push
main
him.
roster.
We'll
Once he
push
got up to
him.
the main roster, he just misused. So they were her first guests, and then the Contra group of Mads Kruger came in there and attacked, and there was all kinds of stuff going on. So the majority of this is the ongoing Opera Cup, MLW's Opera Cup. Volador Jr., who is now a heel. I mean, that guy is such an over technical babyface in Mexico and CMLL, obviously. But here he's a heel, and it's just weird seeing the audience react to this, you know, former heartthrob babyface all the women love. But he defeated Star Jr. So the following are all MLW Opera Cup semifinal matches, unless I otherwise note them. Satoshi Kojima, the All Japan legend, Triple Crown former champ, defeated Bishop Dyer. Austin Aries defeated a returning Paul London, California native. He lives not
Yeah, I
that far
remember
from me.
Paul. I
He is going to
remember.
be coming back to the show. He has long hair and a beard, kind of gray now. Just a super nice guy, incredible talent. And then that led to a confrontation between actor, wrestler extraordinaire Paul Walter Hauser, who was helping with some booking and other things backstage. Brilliant TV film actor, loves wrestling, knows his history. So he and Paul London had a confrontation. I don't know if Paul London's turning heel. Killer Cross of late of WWE, everybody was unhappy that he was let go. He is returning to
Squandered, I think, is
MLW next month.
I think the term squandered is a
Yes,
little
they
bit
miss
more
you.
appropriate.
Well, yeah, it's just too bad. I mean, he was so great on NXT with that open
It's
and
like
his
the
wife and
Bullet
everything.
Club. It's like the saga of the Bullet Club. You
Anyway,
know,
let me finish up and try to get quickly here. Matt Riddle came back and defeated in a dream match for MLW fans Alexander Hammerstone, and basically is turning heel. That being Matt Riddle. Riddle now is claiming as a heel he's a rude dude. And here was another match of the night besides so many others, and besides for me that Mystico Ultimo Guerrero match. Ultimo Guerrero is a rudo bad guy for decades in Mexico, but can still work like a junior heavyweight and still do all of the moves like Atlantis and Blue Panther. These are both the seniors that I shot. But the MLW Women's World Featherweight Championship match, champ Shoko Nakajima, believe both of these are from Joshi Pro. That is what they call women's wrestling, Joshi in Japan. She defeated Himaiwari. Excuse my Nihongo, my bad Nihongo there,
you know more Japanese
Japanese.
than we do, though.
Right.
Well, I had to learn
Um,
it. I learned it specifically to get the boys to pose. So I learned Spanish in 72, Japanese pretty much by end of 74, because I was shooting all over the world. And I had a Japanese girlfriend in LA at the time. I wanted to impress her, but also be able to ask the guys to
it's in the
pose, you know,
days
do their
before Google
poses.
Translate.
He,
In the
he
days,
had the he had the cheat code.
yeah, but in the days before Google
Roman
Translate.
Nasai, let
Right,
me
right.
excuse me. Let me finish. Let me finish. These women were off the charts. I mean, we've seen how great Japanese women. I mean, when I was there in the late '80s and '90s in Japan, shooting at Karakuan and all the other venues that All Japan Women uh, held, that was at their peak when everybody said you will these women out blow away any of the stuff the guys do because they're so much faster, quicker, and that was true of this match. It was an incredible match. I urge everyone to see the whole show, but you know, check out these female. They are just incredible. I can't say enough. So Shoko Nakajima retained MLW Opera Cup. Another match, Mystico defeat. Well, that's the Ultimo Guerrero. He defeated Ultimo Guerrero, and then Austin Aries attacked Mystico after the match, and so that was the end of what I call their slaughterhouse. It felt like a pay-per-view, and then they filmed TV. So we were blessed to see Mystico in another match where he submitted Austin Aries in the main event for TV. And just they, it seems like every major group has an African American young male wrestler, just spectacular high spot, incredible wrestlers. You know, we know upcoming on the NXT, or excuse me, the TNA pay-per-view coming up, Bound for Glory, that the tremendous athlete that they have is going to face in a singles babyface match his counterpart in from NXT, and MLW has one too. He won a 5-person bout. I'll get back to some of these results, but just always surprises and things going on. And Shotzi Blackheart wrestled and beat Brittany. I know she's worked quite a while. Her last name starts with a B. So you guys, if you know who I'm talking about, I didn't get her full name. It's like Brittany Brady, not Brittany Brown, who was a friend of mine and was a Killer Kowalski trainee. Yeah,
Right.
we got her on multiple times. She's a lifelong friend of mine. But MLW Slaughterhouse, an absolutely incredible match. The talent, the wrestlers, the athletes delivered. The booking was great, and it's refreshing to see matches not rushed. You know, you don't give them and have them run into someone else's time, but you give them adequate time to just really capture the audience, take them on that roller coaster journey. So I'll shut up. I didn't mean to take time away from our guest, but I was very enthusiastic. I love the show. They do a meet and greet before where it's like, I don't see meet and greets like this unless you're at WrestleCon, where they have like all the spectacular talent, anybody that's on the card, and Mads Kruger's he always has a room at these. I've been to a number of these. He's always got a sort of a House of Horrors room with his clique, his group in there, and it's just kind of fun, particularly with Halloween coming up. So. And this one, WCW used to do Halloween shows, or sort of tried to do it. They had tombstones in the put together runway. They had a whole stage, but it had a bunch of tombstones and folks with names like Vince McMahon Jr. on the tombstones, and very, very funny. I'm not sure. I'll have to contact Paul Walter Hauser to see if he had a hand in some of that brilliance. So look at that. Just that alone is worth going to see. An incredible show from top to bottom. Every match was great. How many shows, you guys know, I kind of have to fast forward through some of WWE's. I never fast forward through AEW, MLW. Man, every bout was great.
Add it to the agenda. There's so many other shows to watch, so we'll have to try to catch that.
But that's the hard thing. They're looking at AEW. They had their 6th anniversary show, and then I'm going to shut up, last Wednesday. And they only had I thought a 2-short vignette of their classic memories. That's what wrestling's all about, memories that stick with you over the last 6 years. But it was too short, and then it was just like a regular show. It did, they're claiming it did one of the worst ratings in their target 14 to 34 demo, or 24 to 34 age demo. And I think it's not so much that, because their shows always deliver. It's that there's too much wrestling content on every night of the week. I mean, tonight, I think, is finally the long, at times overly long, LFG, Legends and Future Greats, with everybody's favorite Bully Ray, Bubba Ray Dudley, as one of the judges, with Undertaker, his wife, and Booker T. And then before that, you usually have an hour of two WWE Legends shows. This is on a Sunday on A&E, 2 hours of wrestling. So you really can't, you don't have time to watch anything else. Like great Cyndi Lauper special tonight on CBS. I watched 3 hours early. They showed the entire segment from, I believe it was the Grammys Music Awards from '84, where Cyndi Lauper brought Hulk Hogan up as her bodyguard. They showed all of it from when they read the nominees to when she dragged Hogan up as her quote unquote bodyguard, and he talked. I hadn't seen that segment since it aired. And, so you have wrestling there. But I think there's just too much content every night. Like when Dark Side of the Ring returns, it's going to be opposite NXT. So you're gonna have 3 to 4 hours on a Tuesday night. This Wednesday, Tony Khan, after maybe not the greatest rating, which I think is more due to what I'm saying is just too much content. People are getting burned out, and I heard that last night from some fans. As ecstatic as they were about MLW, they're saying the TV schedule is just too much. It's going head to head. So Tony Khan is adding an extra half hour, 2.5 hours of AEW against 2 hours of NXT Tuesday night because of like basketball finals or whatever, or I don't know if it's baseball. Yeah, excuse me, it's baseball divisionals.
Yeah, I mean, you want to watch other sports, but I was going to
So
say,
it's like, why do you have to? It's just ridiculous. And I think also because they get bumped around on Saturdays for Collision, people don't know when to tune in. Like, oh, gee, it's an hour early, or now that WWE is trying to, on Monday nights for Raw, they're having to shift their show an hour early.
That's why you have to DVR it and eventually
so they don't get killed by
it.
the NFL Monday Night Football, ratings, which is king. There's just too much content every night of the week.
But I was going to say this. There is a lot of content. But if you are going to take the time to listen to something, you should be listening to Buster HR's podcast.
Well, tell us about that podcast.
Yes. So I'd like to bring it over to our guest. And I want to actually include you here in tonight's podcast since we invited you in. But
you are good, man. I was enjoying listening to that. Look, I only get to see MLW on YouTube. And I feel like here's the thing, that oversaturation of wrestling is it's over the top right now. There literally is just way too much, and it's just not AEW's ratings are kind of down. If you watch WWE and you look at their
ratings are down too.
Yes, sir. Here's the thing: big time wrestling for me overall is on a decline. But companies like MLW, other companies out here, small independent companies are drawing good crowds now, where big time wrestling is it's kind of sinking down in the viewership. It's just too much of it. I mean, there literally is wrestling every day of the week, every night of the week. How do you watch it all? And here's the thing: how do you care about any of it if you watch it all? It's hard to. It becomes a point where it's hard to differentiate show from show sometimes.
One thing too, we haven't talked about pay-per-views that are all over the place. Now, it's like WWE, particularly Raw, is nothing but a shill for their pay-per-views and Riyadh season and all of this stuff. And there's streaming radio shows. There's now a Busted Open went from when it started 16 years ago as an hour show. And I was trying to talk up the MLW spectacular from last night this morning, but they're a 24/7 channel now. They dumped, I don't know what happened to the boxing and MMA content that went off of the channel 156. So it's nothing but pro wrestling. So there's a lot of stuff that people have to do and then try to have a normal life. Like I don't want to miss Bill Maher on Fridays or John Oliver on Sundays or news or Cyndi Lauper, or anything.
There's football and other stuff
football.
Too, on top of that, yes.
Well, and something else too. Here's the thing: nobody's really out there. The two big companies, neither one of them's really doing nothing spectacular that really is getting people's attention. Man, I'll be honest with you. The WWE, when they kind of killed the Bloodline storyline off, if you noticed, right then is where they started going downhill. The minute they kind of took that where it wasn't the main focus, go back and look. If you start watching, their attendance started dropping pretty much within a couple of months of that. They started dropping. Now they're down to booking moments. Look, I love seeing all these stars return too, but what happens when you run out of AJ Lee's or somebody else that people really want to see? then there's no more moments to book. So where do you go from there? I feel
That was
like,
a good moment, though. We do have
oh
to
yeah,
admit, and give her props. That was tremendous pop, like when CM Punk, particularly when he came back to AEW. But of course, when he came back to WWE after all those years of acrimony and stuff, yeah, AJ Lee got tremendous. Uh, you know, you want everybody to do well, and you want uh, the one ship lifting up all of the others, the high tide, lifting all sails, all of those analogies and things. And the biz has never been better. I just think, and a lot of people don't watch when it's live. Like, they're saying that this Australia pay-per-view, the pre-show is going to start at like midnight, and like if you're on the West Coast, the pay-per-view starts at like 6 a.m. or 4 or 5 a.m. No, nobody in their right minds, I know X amount will, like for New Japan pay-per-views, but or special events, but it's just
Well, it's getting to the point where
it's
the
just too
American
much.
audience doesn't really matter anymore. So it's not
exactly.
just, yeah, it's not catered to the United States. I mean, the WWE announcing that they're going to be in Saudi Arabia, for WrestleMania, that's going to
They did two
disinclude,
things. They took away next year's paper or WrestleMania in New Orleans, which is a fun
and
city, a
moved it
great
to
food
Vegas.
city. Everybody was jazzed to go there for that. And they move it back to where
Vegas.
people had a bad time and they felt the prices were too high in Vegas, only because parent company TKO is brokering these deals just to make the most money. And it's like,
Vegas ponied up $5 million to have the show there in
so
next
but
year.
they screwed over New Orleans, and they've yet to, give them a pay-per-view worthy thing. And then nobody's going to go to the U.S. For the Saudi Mania. Very few, if any. And that, so hopefully Tony Khan and some other people will get together with WrestleCon and have all that stuff. Maybe not against, 2 nights of WrestleMania in Saudi in 2027, but have an event here in the great United States where fans can flock in and have their week of all the shows and groups, everybody putting on great shows. And, you can see things you wouldn't normally see. Big Battle Kaiju and Colt Cabana's, his podcast and stuff like that. And maybe Conrad Thompson bringing his podcast, all of his groups
But
and the great
everybody's
folks.
afraid to compete against WrestleMania. I mean,
Well, you don't
WrestleMania
have
is,
to. You can have that a couple of days early and say, well, they're going to Saudi. We're going to have a whole week like you always have every year around WrestleMania, maybe a day or two before or a week after. But if they're smart, they know when WWE is going to schedule Mania, so they'll have it like the week or weekend before, if that's going to happen, and still have that whole week that normally would happen in the WrestleMania city, but have it someplace and everybody congregate as usual, and not giving a crap about
I just
whatever's
hope
going
that
on with
maybe
Mania.
the independents, like you were saying, Buster, step up and say, hey, you can't go to WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia, but you can go to a great show instead right here in your local area. What now, first of all, where are you podcasting out of?
I'm out of Tennessee. I'm actually out of Dresden, Tennessee. I'm probably 2 hours from Nashville one way, 2 hours from Memphis the other way. So I'm kind of right in the middle of that section by Jackson, Tennessee. Uh, the independents. Here's the
I
thing,
I
man.
gotta ask, how far are you from Kusawachi?
Man, I've never even heard of Kusawachi. So
That
apparently,
would, yeah, as I
maybe I'm a
drove,
long way. I
yeah,
may be a
as I
long
But
drove
way.
more
past
importantly, are
Tennessee.
you old enough? I'm approaching 70, and I was blessed to have seen both Nick Goulas shows, and then of course Jerry Jarrett's spectaculars, and obviously the King, Jerry Lawler, and Bill Dundee, Austin Idol, so many greats. I mean, everybody went in and out of there. But are you old enough that you got to see some Lawler shows,
I grew up
Jerry
on.
Jarrett shows?
I'm a Jerry Jarrett baby. I mean, that's what I
Yes.
grew up on. I lived in a town called Helena, Arkansas, about 2 hours from Memphis. Obviously, Channel 5 wrestling was our main wrestling. I mean, I also got WCW or Georgia Championship Wrestling back in the day. I
Mm.
would get a little rock station that I would have Bill Watts, Mid South Wrestling on sometimes, UWF later on. Sometimes, man, back in the day, you got the rabbit ears. I would even pull in a little bit of the Von Erichs out of Texas. So I
Wow.
got to watch a lot of wrestling. But obviously Jerry Jarrett, Jerry Lawler, that was our home wrestling. Um, I'm 51, fixing to be 52. So I was born in 74. I don't never not remember Channel 5 wrestling. Jerry Lawler, I don't never not remember that. So, I remember that before I remember even watching cartoons, watching wrestling on
Yeah,
Saturday
but you
mornings,
were blessed to have
Good
the
wrestling.
best. Oh man, I mean everybody went in and out of there, and the parade of different great managers. Obviously Jimmy Hart, but I love the Jimmy Hart when they sent him over to Watts for the Sunday WTBS shows. They used to just have like best of Georgia Championship Wrestling, but then we started getting best of Bill Watts, and of course the Jim Cornette birthday party where he gets his head face
Right.
shoved in the cake. It was a part, or was it a party for his poodle? I forget. It was his birthday, or he was having a birthday party for his poodle, and he takes the cake. There's so much good stuff, Russ. I don't know how much Memphis that you've watched, but and I have to say something too. One of the honors of my life was meeting Jerry Jarrett's mom, Miss Christine, who promoted Nashville, and going to the fairgrounds a couple of times and seeing spectacular shows. But being around her and the legends is like my thing. And Sarah Lee and Don and Al Green and Bearcat Brown, all of these old 60s, 70s total legends would help out at the shows. Corsica and his brother Corsica Joe and Corsica Gene. Those names may not, but you would have Eddie Marlin, who was part of, he was related or in the Jarrett family too, three generations there,
Right.
and just amazing stuff. And
It's funny that you
total
asked
legends.
that because you know, when I have a chance, I try to, now I'm trying to like go through retro shows. I'm going through the CWA stuff, so I'm seeing a lot of Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee and Dutch Mantell and Rob Fuller and a lot of the classic old Tennessee and Mid South guys, wrestling in the CWA that Memphis fed that lasted for a couple of years.
Yeah, man. I mean, like he said, everybody who's anybody passed through during the 70s and 80s, and believe it or not, even into the 90s. Of course, USWA was dying off, went out of business in 97. But even after that, Memphis Championship Wrestling had the developmental deal, so there was still young guys WWE was sending down here. Power Pro had a developmental deal at one time. Corey Macklin's Memphis Wrestling. I don't know if they had an actual developmental deal, but they had that working relationship with WWE. So a lot of times they would send their talent here. R-Truth, he's one of the guys in
Oh yeah,
2000 they sent down here. Uh,
K Quick was his
K
working name.
Crush. When he first got here, he was K Crush. Then it changed to K Quick, and now R Truth. But I mean, there's a ton of history. It's what made me want to be a professional wrestler. I was actually trained at the fairgrounds in Nashville by Tony Falk and Jeff Jarrett. Never
Yeah.
got to meet Miss Christine. She was before my time. But man, just there's so much history around the Memphis area and the Nashville area. That's one thing people don't talk about as much either. Everybody focuses on Memphis when it comes to Jerry Jarrett, Nick Goulas, and all that, especially Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler. It's focused around Memphis. But think about all the great matches that happened at the Nashville Fairgrounds, all the big stars that came through there, man. I mean, for me, I
Rocky
mean,
Johnson, the Rock's dad, Rocky Johnson came in. It was there quite a long time.
it was good enough. We're still sitting here talking about it 40 years later. So, I mean, really, when you watch modern wrestling, very few things catch your attention to that point where you think, man, I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life,
One thing
and
for Russ is not just the Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler stuff, but Kaufman did a lot of stuff with Jimmy Hart, and even my Los Angeles Mike LaBelle territory, big boss. I reported to Judo Gene LaBelle and Jeff Walton, but Jeff Walton was our publicist and did the program. But when 2 years before Vince went national, he bought our office. Mike LaBelle was our territory died a slow death in Los Angeles. In December '82, Mike LaBelle sells the office and its assets, including the famous blue steel cage you saw. For example, WWF used it because they bought that
WrestleMania
from
2, yeah.
yeah,
That's that
WrestleMania
old
2.
school steel cage, right? Not
Yeah.
chain link, old school steel cage.
No, it was really old school. That was the second Freddie Blassie steel cage. The first one, the Sheik in 3 cage matches in 1970 helped turn Freddie Blassie from our most hated heel to beloved uber
Face.
babyface, which was absolutely incredible. And then to seal the deal, Freddie Blassie challenged Rocky Johnson to a quote unquote scientific match. And he said if he used or did, I'm just quoting him, one underhanded tactic, he would leave town. So they wrestled a Broadway, 45-minute Broadways, baby faces. So after 3 heel matches with the Sheik, turning face, and then solidifying it with Rocky Soulman Johnson. But the guy who gave Rocky Johnson the Soulman name was Jeff Walton, who went in when our office closed to work as a heel manager, Tux Newman, for Jarrett.
Right.
And he was with Kaufman and Jimmy Hart, and there was all kinds of shenanigans and cool stuff going on. And Jeff wasn't the greatest manager. He bleached his hair blonde, but he was a lot of fun, and we were all pulling for him. And he had a successful career there. I don't know if that was a little before your time, '82, or maybe not.
What? No,
Well,
I
it
was
couldn't have
just
been if you were watching Georgia Championship. You were
yeah, man. Like I said, I was born in '74. I remember watching wrestling's my earliest memory, probably 4 or 5 years old. I had this giant panda bear. When I say giant, it was probably, yeah, it was bigger than me at the time. So back then it was 11 to 12:30 on Saturday mornings for wrestling. It was a 90-minute show. So when I was that little, for 90 straight minutes, man, I'm watching wrestling and beating the crap out of this panda bear the whole time, practicing all the wrestling moves.
That is so funny, Buster. We had a giant stuffed crocodile that we would do the same thing to. That we put sleeper holds on and do the figure
Right.
4 on it and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. Or just jump on it. It was big and stuffed, so you could jump off the couch and just, do your elbow drops right on it.
Right.
Yes.
And you mentioned Jimmy Hart. Here's the thing. Nowadays, anybody young, all they know about Jimmy Hart's the Hulk Hogan Jimmy Hart. Anybody a little older than that, they know the WWF Jimmy Hart.
Dirty White Boys, all the guys he managed.
Right. Very few people know before WWF Jimmy Hart, where Jimmy Hart was in Memphis and was a heat magnet manager. Jimmy Hart, when I was a kid, was the manager for us. He was off the charts. When he left to go to WWF, look, I was just a little kid and a fan then, but you could feel through the TV the impact Jimmy Hart leaving had for a long time. You could tell that the show was missing something. You still had Lance Russell, you had Dave Brown, and Lance, for me, he is my announcer. Lance and Gordon Soley are my 2 announcers. And then after
exactly. They're on the Mount Rushmore, number 1 and number 2. Gordon, Lance is very close.
Suplex.
What a sweet guy. I had a long, multi-decade friendship with Lance. Had him on the old show with Evan. Legends, and no bigger legend than Lance Russell. Yeah, and the dream stuff of having him at WCW in the early '90s and doing some shows, a couple of them with Terry Funk and with Gordon. Yeah, it was a shame that his talents weren't used more properly, because there was no finer human being or absolutely incredible at emoting emotion at the right moments and getting guys over, but in a sport believable way. There was nobody better than Lance Russell.
Lance Russell
definitely
was as big as Jerry Lawler for the Memphis TV show. People can say what they want, but Lance was just as important for that show as any of the other stars that was on it. Lance truly was a star. He was that country guy, man. He just natural reactions to things, man. Sometimes, especially now, a lot of times announcers are a lot of over
Ugh.
animated, a little more than they should be. Lance was always kind of right on cue. It felt like Lance always took every situation with logic, real life logic. You know, if Jerry Lawler's doing so bad, come on now, Jerry. You know, so you know better than that. Uh, just just one of the greats. And when Lance left to actually go to WCW, it felt the same way it did, maybe even more so than when Jimmy Hart left to go to WWF back in the early '80s. Lance, when he left to go to WCW, man, that was like that was almost like the last blow for Memphis wrestling, man. I mean, it stayed alive a good while, probably another 10 years.
Well, you're totally right, Buster, because when you're talking, a manager, they're gonna, work one match, all right? But Lance, he's there for every
He was there for
match.
the whole thing. I've
Yeah,
got to go, you
he's
guys. My throat's starting to hurt. Believability and credibility. That's
There
what
you
Lance
go.
had. He reacted properly. I
he didn't
wish
treat the
guys would.
audience like they were idiots.
No, he didn't. Yeah, he was an everyman, and people loved him and related to him and believed him. And that is lacking with most of today's over emoting, just as Buster said. These guys
Well,
overreact
it's
and
all scripted. There's just nothing that comes at all
uh,
from the heart. It's prepackaged, like getting. It's about as loving a meal as you get from McDonald's. You know.
You, you
good night, guys.
you can't get a natural reaction when you hand somebody a script to read. I mean, you just can't. You can't get a natural reaction. And the thing about Lance, I mean, he had his format, but past that, Lance just said what Lance wanted to say to fit the situation of whatever was going on. He just basically reacted to what was going on.
But he knew how to react. He knew how
Right.
to say things that were, descriptive. I mean, first of all, usually he didn't work that many matches with color guys. So a lot of times he was just it. He was just the guy that was giving the play-by-play and the color at the same time, which is something I've had to do from time to time, and it is one of the more awkward things that I can't do it. I'm as a former manager, I am purely a color guy, and telling and calling play by play is like a lot harder than anyone realizes. I mean, people who watch wrestling don't realize how hard it actually is to be an announcer and to do play by play, and if you're a color guy, if you're a play by play guy, what the hardest thing to do is color, because that's just so like just not what you're trying to do. So I was personally teamed up when I was at California Championship Wrestling with a friend of mine that just we had the perfect guerrilla Bobby Heenan type banter going back and forth. So it worked really well for us. But trying to do it by yourself without somebody to bounce it off of, and you don't have one person saying, I'll do play by play, I'll do color, it can be or when you have guys stepping all over each other because they both want to do both, then
Right.
it's pretty ugly. So
I actually do announcing for it's a conglomerate of companies around the Memphis Mid-South area. It's
it's a
called the Unified
conglomeration, my friend.
Conglomeration of companies, which is unusual around this area. There's like 8 companies that are actually part of this thing called the Unified Wrestling Alliance, and I do their voiceovers for their matches and their
Wow.
intros by myself. And I'm like you. I'm an ex-wrestler, so obviously I'm more of a color guy. I would rather be able to get on the announcer's table with a straight man and be able to say whatever I want, and him be able to, like Bobby Heenan and Gorilla. Bobby Heenan just straight up tell a lie, and Gorilla be like, come on, Bobby, you just straight up lying to these fans. I would much rather do that. But it's took time. It is hard, like you said, so hard when you're by yourself because you want to say some funny stuff too. There's nobody there to bounce nothing off of, so you got to feel every bit of that time yourself, and it is awkward, man. I've been doing it probably about 5 months now, maybe a little longer. That maybe 6 or 7. But I'm finally kind of starting to get the groove. And honestly, when I do play-by-play as a straight man, I'm doing my best damn Gordon Soley mixed with Lance Russell kind of impression, because I like Gordon Soley's style of calling the moves, calling the holds, and then I like Lance's style of just giving you a general overview of what's happening during this match and what's going on with these guys and what their issues are. And you talk about Lance, man. Even when Dave was out there, you're talking about two straight guys together. You don't have that color guy. So it is amazing that Dave and Lance were really as good together as they were, because you got two guys doing the same exact job.
Yeah, no, but Dave absolutely was able to pace it out so that Lance could get in all of his stuff. He never stepped on Lance's stuff. I mean, he definitely let Lance do the lead, and then he would interject in parts once Lance was done. And I think that
Right.
was great. You didn't have like today's announcers just step all over each other all the time. And you just, a lot of times with the crowd too, and I may be sounding like an old man, but with the music and the fan, like, the amped audiences, okay, you can't hear what the hell is going on. A lot of times the announcing is just this mismatch of just, it's almost like soup that has no flavor. It's just there in the background. It's there, but it gives you nothing. And like when the match is over, there's nothing that you remember that the announcers were saying about whoever was in the ring. There's just not, because it's so scripted, and it's so especially in the WWE, where they're given a giant book of everything they can't say.
And they're mainly promoting, during the matches. They're not really talking about the match most of the time. They're promoting sponsors. They're promoting upcoming shows. They're talking about other things. I'm the same way.
And making sure that they don't step on a landmine of saying something like a referee, or saying something like this is a title, or this is a disqualification. Like, you can't say like 3/4 of the things that you would normally say. And when you have that floating over your head, and ooh, I can't say that. Ooh, I can't say that. No wonder they can't come up with something that sounds like it comes from their heart. And that is the thing that I think you and I both agree with Lance Russell, with Gordon Soley, with so many of the old school announcers. They were really just flying off the seat of their pants. They had no script. They probably knew who was going over at the end, but a lot of times they didn't, because nobody would ever bother telling them, and they'd just sit there and watch it as it was happening. And they would just, give their impression of it, coming right from an unscripted level. And I think we all grew up with that. And now that we see everything so stilted and processed and controlled, it doesn't feel natural to us. I mean, it doesn't feel natural to me. I don't want to talk for you, but I think you may feel the same kind of way. So
yeah, I can't. I mean, here's the thing. Up until Lawler and Jim Ross, I feel like those were probably the last two announcers combos that anybody's really gonna care about. Lawler never does nothing on script. I don't think he even did on script at all when he was in WWE and WWF. And Jim Ross, I would have. I mean, obviously they got their formats, but how you gonna tell Jim Ross kind of what to say? You know what I mean? Same thing with Jerry Lawler. How's Jerry Lawler gonna be Jerry Lawler and be a good color guy if he can't be Jerry Lawler?
perfect. Yeah, absolutely. So let's rewind just a little bit so you can tell us about, like, first of all, your whole background. So I'm interested. So you were a wrestler and you were trained by Jeff Jarrett. I mean, how did that all start? How did you get involved with wrestling in that sense?
Never wanted to be anything else. When I tell you my wrestling's my first memory, that's all I ever wanted to do or be. My brother is actually 18 years older than me, and he wanted to be a manager, but he waited until I was 17 to try to break in the business with me. Where I wish now, hindsight's 20/20, and you learn the wrestling business, and you learn that, man, if you'd have got in at 18, man, you'd have had a lot of connections. It'd have been a lot easier to get looked at by a lot of different places. But in 1991, I was 17 years old. We had been calling for, there wasn't wrestling schools like there is now. Like, it was hard. We finally got a hold of somebody that gave us Jerry Jarrett's actual number and told us that, hey, they do some training at the fairgrounds sometimes, man. Call this guy. And so my brother, it took him 6 months to get a hold of Jerry Jarrett. We started at the first of 91, and it was probably mid 91, before we ever got a hold of Jerry Jarrett. Honestly, he tried to discourage my brother from us coming in every way he could. I didn't talk to him, my brother did. So my brother, when he gets off the phone, he's like, man, he says, well, I got you a date. I don't remember exactly what start date it was to come to the school in Nashville. They used to do it on Sundays. But he said, I got you a start date here to go start training. We got to be in Nashville at the fairgrounds, such and he said, but man, it was like he didn't want us to come. And when you're on the outside looking in, you don't understand that. But after being in the business, you realize how many thousands of phone calls has Jerry Jarrett had about people wanting to break in the wrestling business. And then, I mean, even if they come to the class, most people who come to the class don't come back. Honestly,
you know
what I mean? He told my brother, he said, look, only 3 a year, if you're lucky, actually make it into the business. We didn't let it discourage us. We went on, went to the Nashville Fairgrounds. The first day I went there, Jeff wasn't there. Tony Falk was in the ring training the guys, come out, introduced himself to us. And this was still during kayfabe. So he give us the handshake, and immediately we didn't know nothing about it. So he knew we wasn't smart at all to the business. You know what I mean? He knew right off the bat that we were green to the business, had no clue. Paid our money, signed my waiver. You're supposed to be 18. I lied. Of course, I was 6'1". I always build myself a 6'3", but 6'1", 350 pounds then. Just a big country boy, pretty solid. I mean, I wasn't built, but I was a solid country boy, could move for my size. Signed us up, man. I trained there from mid to late, probably from about September of 2001, probably close to September of 2002, before I ever had a match. By that time, Jeff was already starting to, a lot of Sundays Jeff wouldn't be there because he'd be off somewhere else actually working a show. And he was starting to get flirted with the WWF at that time too. That was right before the 93 thing where Bret Hart came down and Vince McMahon showed up and all that. And Jeff went to the FedEx Forum and actually sat in the crowd. But I trained there till I was probably late 1992, mid to late 92, started wrestling, went from there to Don Bass in Arkansas, because they knew I lived in Arkansas, so they sent us to Don Bass. Don Bass, man, the first time we ever met Don Bass, we met him at a Flying J truck stops, I think is what it was at the time, in West Memphis. So we meet him, eat a meal. He takes us to his house, and outside his house, there's this probably 20 by 20 metal shed. So we go in that metal shed, and there's a ring, but it's not a ring. It's like 4 posts buried into the ground,
Wow.
some sagging ropes, and it's on concrete. There ain't no flooring. There ain't no ring at all. It's like eight layers of old shag carpet. You remember back in the day, that under the canvas, that's what the pad was.
Wow.
Old dirty ass carpet. Trained with him a little bit, man, and just started wrestling after that, man, and just kind of started what you would call back then in Outlaws.
Yeah, or the backyard stuff, sure. And then, so how long did you wrestle for?
I wrestled on and off from late 92 to 2009. From 2000, straight from late 92 to 2002. I took a little sabbatical, whatever you want to call it. I was burnt out on wrestling. I mean, you just get that way sometimes. You get burnt out on the business.
Hasn't happened to me. I'm in my 25th year of doing it, and somehow I don't know why. I've gone through some crazy ass shit, but you know what? I somehow don't tire out from it. And both me and my brother look at each other and go, when is this ever going to end for us? And we're like, maybe when we're dead, maybe not. Maybe they'll still trot us out as animatronic stuff or whatever, even after we're dead. Holograms, that kind of thing.
Holograms.
So, so tell me, some of the highlight matches that you've had when you were wrestling.
Man, the first time I ever got to wrestle Jerry Lawler on Channel 5 TV,
Wow.
I would think, and I was just, I mean, we called them job boys. And now you're enhancement talent. I was a job boy at that time.
You're a jobber,
So
yeah, sure.
I was a job boy. So, but man, originally we had a match that was going to be about 7 minutes, but it was at the end of the program. And as TV, especially live TV goes, everybody, this one ran a little over, this one ran a little over. So time
2
we get to
minutes.
our match, we're down to 3 minutes. So
Uh,
go out there, bump for Lawler real good. He sends me out, tells me to get on some fans, get a little heat. I did that. He got a big pop when he come out. Of course, I didn't have nothing to do with that. He's the king. He gonna get a pop anyway. But had like a 3 minute match, bumped my ass off for him. Hits me with a back elbow, and I land in the center of the ring, but without even, like, I didn't even do it. It's just fate. When I bounced, I kind of twisted, and my head was perfectly facing the turnbuckle. So Lawler climbs to that second rope and holds that fist up. And all I could think, it hit me right then, man. It was I was looking
was
up
it
at
Lawler or
Lawler.
was it Jarrett? Was it Lawler or was it Jarrett? Did
No, it was
you?
Jerry
Okay, you said Lawler. You
Lawler,
said. Oh, okay. All
Jerry
right.
Lawler.
Oh, Jerry Lawler. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, he goes up. He holds that fist up, and everybody knows what's coming. So I'm laying on the mat. I'm looking up at him, and I'm thinking, man, I had just this epiphany, like it was the most surreal moment. I'm like, I waited my whole life for Jerry Lawler to drop this fist on me. I went instantly back to my mom and dad's living room with that panda bear, man. I'm looking up at Lawler, and I'm thinking,
But you're
I'm
the
just sitting there,
bear. You're the bear now.
dude. I mean, and he came off that rope, and for me, it was slow motion. He does the fist, looks around at the crowd, does his hop, and for me, it's like it took him 40 seconds to land, which it really was probably a second and a
Split
half.
second, sure.
But I'm just looking up at him, and I'm like, man, I waited my whole life for this moment. Still to this day, one of the coolest moments I've ever had in my wrestling career. It just is, man. As a kid, growing up watching Jerry Lawler, and for us, and I believe this to this day, Jerry Lawler is still one of the most underrated guys in professional wrestling, one of the true stars of pro wrestling. Here's the thing. Lawler's the type of guy, when you get in the ring with him, he immediately calms you down. If you're nervous, just his presence in the ring, because everything's like second nature to him. It's like he's done, of course he has. It's like he's done this a million times, which of course he has. But when you're a young guy and you're across there from Jerry Lawler for the first time, you're nervous, especially when Lawler is one of your top few guys in the wrestling business that you looked up to.
And he's an amazing artist. A lot of people don't know that he's like a comic book level style artist. I mean, he could have been a pro artist if he had wanted to be, and I've always admired that about Jerry Lawler too. So you faced Lawler. How about any other guys that you faced? Or did you ever hold any titles or anything like that?
I was tag team champions with my partner Rufus Ron McClary in 1998. The status quo of Memphis was, it was a certain group: Doug Gilbert, Tommy Rich, Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee, a certain select group that was controlling Memphis wrestling still. And a guy by the name of Terry Golden started a company called KAW, Kick Ass Wrestling. Basically, it was the Memphis's version of ECW. And I went to work there. I'd worked at USWA. Like I said, I was in enhancement talent. They did book me on shows, on house shows and stuff. So I actually got to work on those, but on TV, overall an enhancement talent. I think I got one win on TV over a guy named Bulldog Reigns right before they went out of business. Like when they went out of business in 97, we all left there one Saturday morning with a booking sheet, and you get a call like Sunday saying, hey, there ain't no use coming back to the studio right now. The only shows that they're going to continue to run is the Lula, Mississippi casino shows. And
Oh,
it just died right there. I mean,
what a bummer.
it was just over. I went home one Saturday night after TV and a show, and Sunday evening I get the call from downtown Bruno. It says, hey, no more TV. And he can't give you no information either at that time, because it was still the I guess the lawsuit was going on, and couldn't nobody really say nothing. So all he could tell you was, hey, there ain't no shows for the near future. go work somewhere. You know what I mean? Go find
And
you somewhere to
downtown
work.
Bruno is Harvey Whippleman, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, for fans that may not remember, Bruno, they definitely remember, or they should remember Harvey Whippleman. So,
He's the
so tell me then how everything led to your podcast.
man. Like I said, I'd wrestled from '92 to 2002. Took a little time off. Wrestled a few times through the years up to 2009. In 2009, I just knew I was done with it. My in-ring was done. And I actually stayed out of the business until I want to say 2018, and I started my YouTube channel off of just dumb luck, man. It was the 2020 elections were coming up. And so I got the bright idea one night to put my mask on and cut a 30-second promo about elect Big Buster Johnson for president. You know, Donald Trump don't give a shit about you. I don't even remember who was running against him then. They don't give a shit about you. If you want somebody that cares about you in America, vote for Big Buster Johnson, you know.
That
And
was Hillary Clinton. That was Hillary Clinton.
it turned into like a 19 episode thing. And it led to me going and starting to film some of the indie shows around our area. And that's what I started my YouTube channel with, is going around to these local indie shows, filming them myself, and then coming home and putting them on YouTube. And I did that for probably 3 years, from 2 good years, 2 years. And then I wrote some things on Facebook. I made some posts about wrestling on Facebook that got a little steam around our area. So a couple of my buddies called me up. One of them is the guy who actually owns the Unified Wrestling Alliance, the UWA, that's actually getting all these companies together. And he says, hey, he said, what do you think about coming on our podcast, him and another buddy of mine? And the way he said it, I assumed I was going to be a guest. So, you know, I'd never done a podcast up to that point. And I really honestly didn't want to do it, but I couldn't tell them no, you know. So I'm like, yeah, man. And so I say, yeah. And I think it's just going to be a podcast I'm on. But by the time we get to the podcast, they've done named this thing after me. And then I figured they suckered me in, is what they did.
Yeah, you're obligated now. Yeah.
They suckered me in. We did the podcast. It was named after me. And at the closing of the first one, I thought, even with it being named, because at that time it was called Buster Uncovered, because I had just come out of the mask. I'd wore a mask for a lot of my career. A lot of it I didn't, but most of it I did. So the original show was called Buster Uncovered. And so it ends, and Mark Manley, the guy who owns the UWA, he says, we'll be back next week at such and such time. Buster will be back with us. So then I'm thinking, all right, so it's going to be 2 podcasts. Still hadn't really fully clicked in my head that, oh shit, this thing is, they plan on me doing this. And we did 11 together. He's a big football sports guy. He runs the Boot Hill Sports Network out of the Boot Hill of Missouri. And what they do, it's a YouTube channel. They go around and record high school football, basketball, high school sports around the Missouri Boot Hill. So he went off and left the wrestling podcast and decided he was going to focus in on his sports. And I just took the podcast, changed the name to Buster Unmasked, and 200 episodes later, I'm still doing it, man. But I was actually suckered into it.
Wow. Well, that's a great story, and I hate to say it, we're running out of time. So, we'd love to have you again as a guest on the show, or if you can bring some of the folks in some of the feds that you're with, and they want to be on the show, I'd love to interview them, because I really, the theme of the show is wrestling and everything coast to coast. So even though you guys are landlocked, it's still very valuable for me to, I want to touch all 50 states if I can, and I'd love to touch every country in the world that cares about wrestling, because it's just, there's always a great story behind everybody's involvement in the show. And as I've always said to people that have a podcast, when you've run out of every possible guest that you could possibly have, and you have no one else to interview, I'm available for your podcast. So,
dude, we got something else in common, man. I seen that you're on the, what is it, ECUSA TV?
Yes, we're on, and we just got picked up by Nighthawk Radio. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. That's a new station for us. So we're on Nighthawk Radio. We're on ECUSA TV, thanks to Angel Orsini. And as I said, if you ever get bored of the same old story down in the South, I'd be happy to be on your show sometime.
We'll definitely do that. I think I'm going to be on your channel here for long. My buddies are wrestling, well, weed, music, and wrestling, their podcast, and I think the Buster Unmasked podcast will be showing up on the ECUSA TV soon.
That'll be great. Misery loves company. So
there you go.
It'd be great to have you as part of the family, and it's really been fun talking to you. Why don't you plug your podcast here and your social media stuff so our fans can get a hold of you if they want?
Look, go to YouTube to Buster H.R. Johnson on YouTube. All you got to do is go there, type in Buster H.R. Johnson. You'll see a cartoon picture of me. Subscribe to that channel. Buster Unmasked is obviously on there. Buster H.R. Johnson on Facebook, too. Go there and follow me. My next podcast will be this coming Thursday night. I'll have a guy named Robert Carter Jr., Divine Productions. He makes a lot of the theme music for the guys around our area, their intro music. He made the music for the podcast, and I do this thing called the Dirty Dozens Pro Wrestling Roast Battles, where I take pro wrestlers, put them together in 3 rounds. They go mic for mic. First round smack talking, second round's battle rap. Third round is promo wars. Really cool show. The second one's coming up October 19th. It's a Sunday at 8 p.m. Check it out.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for being on our show, and we'll see everybody next week. Good night, everyone.